Very good. All right, so everyone, welcome. Welcome to a special workshop here. JALT Niigata using Google Forms as quizzes, assessment with Google Classroom and third-party apps. My name is Phil. I'll be your host, back-end tech kind of person in the background. And on behalf of JALT Niigata, Pansig, and our co-sponsor Matsuyama, we are excited to have you join us for today's workshop. Let me go ahead and move forward real quick. You can see. There we go. So today's session, we'll give a quick shout out to our sponsors. For those of you that don't know what JALT is, I'll explain maybe 30 seconds on it. And then we'll go over the webinar, housekeeping rules, what's different about this workshop in terms of the technical layout versus a Zoom meeting. And then we'll introduce our lovely, wonderful, amazing, supernatural speakers. And then some Q&A time at the end. So quick shout out to our sponsors. We have JALT Matsuyama co-sponsoring us today for Linda. Hi Linda, hello. They've graciously co-sponsored our event this time, so thank you very much. And then also Pansig, they are advertising our event as part of their whole 2-day weekend. I also invite you, after we're done here, please go visit them to check out many other workshops in progress. And then, of course, our JALT Niigata team. Of course, I'm in the way, so I can move myself. There we go. So that's our team. There we go. I moved up. So there's our team here, JALT Niigata team. If you are from Niigata and would like to help out and participate, shoot us an email or shoot us a chat, and we will love to have you on board. Okay. We're going to 1 minute. 1 minute warning. Go ahead, take your seats. Take your virtual seats. We'll start very shortly here. Please remember these rules. If you can see, let me spotlight myself. Where's my spotlighter? There we go. There we go. Please follow these rules that are happening. Oh, I can't see half of that. Again, all your videos and mics are disabled by default. Please use the Q&A for questions. If you want to ask questions to Bill, even though he has finished, please do so. It's by all means. And then the chat will be unavailable when the speaker starts, so please save that until the end. I'll reopen it once the Q&A is open again. I'm sorry, the question and answer time for the speaker starts. And then, of course, recording will be available on our JALT Niigata website. I'm not too sure with Pansig. There should be a post survey after the session. And as always, please enjoy yourselves. Please have a great time. I think we're good to go. Anything else, Melody?
No,
Linda?
no. Are you ready, Nate?
Good to go.
Knock him dead.
All right, so before I share my screen, I threw a link to a slide deck for this presentation. It's really just a series of links or reminders of a few things I think are important about the session. I'm not going to, go through the deck with you. Actually, I might go back to it just to grab a couple of links. But for today, we're going to spend most of the time talking about Google Classroom and how you can do assessment with Classroom, including Google Form quizzes and the rubric tool, which I find is really useful. So I'll kind of tell you how the ecosystem for Google Classroom goes as we go through this. And hopefully we'll get into looking at TED-Ed as well as Edpuzzle, very briefly, mind you, and how you could use those as third-party assessments. There's a few other ones in that deck, but we won't get to them. But they're just ideas in case you haven't you haven't heard of them before. All right, so let me just move a few things around here. Okay, so let me just minimize that. Okay, so Google Classroom. The first thing I want to point out is that you do have in your own private account. Now, I'm working from my Google for Education trainer account. I'm one of about 2,500 people around the world that basically are human billboards for Google. So in your own private domain, you will notice that Google Classroom is an app. Technically, private accounts aren't supposed to be using it for a school. I don't know why they even have it activated, but many people still do. But we're going to talk in the context of your school having a Google for Education account and assuming that you have it. If you don't see it in your school account, you want to check with your IT administrator and make sure that it is activated, because not all apps are activated. Your IT people have to do it. So the first thing that you want to do is access Google Classroom by clicking, the app icon. Now, the thing is, what you want to do is first set up your class. Now, this session isn't really about how to set up your class. So I'll kind of mention a few things as I go along, but if you've accessed Classroom, or if you see assessment within this tool, then you might want to think about learning how. It's quite intuitive. Also in the slide deck, you'll notice I linked Welcome to Your First Day of Classroom. Google has a series called First Day of Classroom, First Day of YouTube, First Day of Google Forms, which I pulled up here too. If you just Google First Day of Google Classroom or First Day of Google Forms, these will come up and they give you a series of how-to videos. Very simple, very easy to follow, and designed by Google. But there's a load of other things out there as well. And this is the slide deck that I linked, so it's nice to see the people are in there. I'm going to keep that tab open just because I might go back to it a little bit later. Okay, so you can see here I have a couple of classes. The one that I'm using today is a demo class. Now, this isn't an interactive one. This is more of a demonstration. So I'm just going to go along with what I've set up here. Okay. Now, first off, again, thank you, Pensig and Niigata JALT, for having me here. In particular, Niigata JALT approaching me a month and a half or 2 months ago to do this. I really appreciate it, really enjoy this stuff. Now, this is the teacher view that we're looking at. Now, I'm going to go out of this a little bit later and show you the student view, okay? So when you start your classroom, you can create your theme and all that. Pretty straightforward, just select a theme or upload, much like Bill showed you with Google Forms. You will notice that a lot of the shapes and sizes, text and that, it's consistent across Google apps, so pretty intuitive. The first thing is people. Now, if you're working with another teacher, you're gonna wanna add another teacher. So that means if you're co-teaching a class, then there you go, you can work on this together. Now, for the assessment stuff to work in Google Classroom, you have to invite students, and that's just by clicking the invite students icon here. So you tap that and you type in their email or their name. Now, you might already have a Google group set up by your administrators, your IT administrators, or you might just type their name in. Or if you want, another thing you can do is, if I go back to my stream tab here, this is your main home base, so to speak, in a class. Here, you notice that it's got class code. Your students could just go to that class code to join, COBNR73. Or if you tapped here, you could generate a link, and then you can do an online video kind of thing. That's actually a little bit different, so I won't go there. Just gonna click, got it. What you could do if you had your students join a class while you're in a class, or even if you're doing a webinar, you just tap that and then it automatically kind of comes up. Okay, so the key idea here is until you have people accept the invitation to the classroom, until you have at least one student, you can't use the assessment features, okay? So that's the first thing. Grades, now what I've done is set up a class with 5 students, right? Student 1, 2, 3, and all that. And I've deliberately not done anything with student 5 because I want to kind of show you how the grading tools work. But I did it with everybody else so that you can see that there is a class average that's automatically scored and things like that, okay? So I'm gonna go back to my stream here. And you notice in Google Forms when Bill was talking to you, you've got up here this gear wheel, okay? Well, that's where you want to set your class up. Most Google tools, they have a gear wheel in there, right? Just keep it consistent so people like me that are forgetful can access them easily. But what you want to do is go down after you click the gear wheel, and that's how you want to set up your grading categories. Now, just for the sake of today, I've kept everything quite simple. Maybe I have written communication, oral communication, maybe quizzes. I myself, I'm a history teacher, actually. I teach at an international school in Nagoya. So this isn't far off actually from the kind of things I would do, right? But every school is different. And so you can go back and actually change these if you want. Now I've chosen to weight things by category. So written communications, 50%, oral, 25, quizzes, 25. For you, writing might be a big part of your class. So that's why you weighted a little bit more. And you can just simply add categories by clicking add grade category. Hopefully I'm not going too fast here. So I'm just going to go up here and I'm going to click my X. If you're wondering how to get out of things, look in the top left for that little X. right there. My fingers are getting sweaty. You know, the Nagoya summer here is doing my head in. Can't really zoom in as well. Anyway, you click that, and that's going to take you back to wherever you were before. Okay, so again, we've got our people, students have joined, grades. We'll go back to that in a moment. And here's where you want to look at classwork. Now, I've gone in and already created 2 quizzes. I've created 2 writing assignments, and I've created 1 that I've assigned. Now, here on the left, you can see I've got something called all topics. If I wanted to look just at the writing topics, I could tap on that and okay, I've got 4 assignments graded. 1 has been assigned, but it's not been turned in. And then I can look at another one and who's, you know, turned things in. So for example, I've assigned 1, but I don't know who that is. I tap on that and then I can see, oh, student 5, you haven't submitted your assignment, right? So I'm just gonna go back here. Well, since I'm in here, I'll point out that you can go in and check your instructions. You can, you know, edit your point values and things like that if you would like. I'm gonna go right back here, and then I'm gonna click classwork again. Feel free to throw your questions in the Q&A, and we'll definitely get to them later. This, believe it or not, is quite intuitive, but I want to show you how it's all set up. So one other thing that's kind of important is that when somebody joins your class, okay, so let's say 5 teachers at your institution are using Google Classroom. Well, each time they join a class, in Google Drive, they're gonna automatically have a folder called Classroom made for them. And so if they tap on that, now you could see I've got a few other classes, a couple I should probably delete here, but there's the demo class Niigata JALT, which is the one that I'm using now. So if I tap on that, I've got all the assignments that I made. And the nice thing is these were automatically generated for me as the teacher, and for the students, they automatically have that folder created and generated for them too. And only you and the student can see this. So only you and the student actually see the work. It's not visible to everybody in the class, which is quite nice. And that is automatically done for you. I'll reiterate that in a moment. If I wanted to, though, I could tap on the folder and then I could go in and see how students are doing. Even before they submit it, I can see the progress that they've made, which is quite nice. And I can comment on all that too. So how does the quiz feature look? Now, I'm not going to build one yet, just to show you that, okay, I've got one made. I want to see if a student has or has not done it. So I'm going to click on this and I can see, oh, 1 student has not done it yet. So if I click on that, I have a look. And if I want, with that student, let's see, sorry, getting a little bit ahead of myself here. Just gonna go back, and this is where you can actually use the back button. So I could, if I want, I can message that student, right? I can do all of that by clicking view assignment as well. Now I'm gonna go back and show you how students would answer that a little bit later. But if I want, I can go in, I can look at the assignment, and I can see the ones that have been graded. So these students all have it done, and I've actually sent the grades back to them, okay? So when I want to import the grades into a spreadsheet, this is where I go. And I go to any assignment that I've assigned, and I can tap import grades, and I click the word import, and it reminds me that, do I want to import these grades? Because all the grades I've imported before are going to be overwritten. What does that mean? When I click import, just kind of let that kind of pop up. And so when I look at a spreadsheet that's been made earlier, that means it's been updated. So let me just go back here. I'm gonna go back to classwork. So how does this look when the teacher's making a quiz? Okay, I'm gonna show you the student view later, but right up here is where you create all your class materials. Here under classwork, this is where you might have the class syllabus and all that kind of stuff. But for the sake of assessment, I'm gonna just tap on create, and I'm gonna start with a quiz assignment, okay? So I tap on that, and you notice here that if I want, I can create from a blank quiz, all right? Now, I've got all my different things right here on the side, so this is what I wanna do first. I'm gonna choose my category, and I've already made quizzes, remember, because you wanna set that up first. And this one, I wanna keep it out of 100 points because that'll be automatically turned into the 25% weighting I gave quizzes earlier. I might wanna set a due date. So maybe I'm gonna make it June 30th, way later. You might want to change the time. I'll keep it at 11:59, whatever works for your students. Now, this is a quiz, so you're not going to be able to set up a rubric. And one other thing that I want to point out is that if you create a quiz, you can't add other things, support documents and things like that. That's one of the things I don't like about Classroom and the quiz feature. But the deal is, if I want, I can just close that because I've already made a quiz, or maybe I want to recycle a quiz I've used before. So I'm going to go to Google Drive and just wait for that to populate. And I'm going to go to, which one? Demo quiz 2. Let's use that. So I'm going to click add. And I've got my grade importing on, which means I can import this grade to my spreadsheet with all of my other grades. So you're not going to have to do a whole bunch of copying and pasting and things like that. Now I want to give it a title, right? Just, demo quiz. You'll notice that I do not type very well. And, instructions, please complete the quiz. Now, because you can't add other features here and have grade importing, I just type any support links or anything that I would have right here. Now, you can add other things. You could add a YouTube video or a file or a link, or you could even create a Google Drive document from there. But that means the grade importing will not work. So it kind of defeats the purpose of efficiency. So up here in the top right is where you can assign things, but note that you can schedule it to go out. You can save it as a draft. Let's say you're going on conference or something and you want to get stuff done. You can schedule it to be sent. I'm not going to do that right now, but I'm going to click assign, knowing that everything's done here, but oh, I missed the topic. So I want to put a topic called quizzes in here too. That's again for my organization. Notice here that it auto saves as well, which is pretty sweet. So I click assign. And now my students get the demo quiz, okay? Now I'm going to show you another thing that you can do in terms of uploading assignments, okay? And then I'm going to go back and show you how all the grading bit works, okay? So I'm going to click, now that's the Google Forms quiz. Now I want to get into the rubric. So I'm going to go up here and click create. And this time I'm going to create an assignment. So this would be a longer assignment, probably a piece of writing, or maybe they create a video and they're going to upload it. So I'm just going to click assignment and just give it assignment 1. And again, whatever instructions you have. I can spell, I just can't type. Now, I'll go over to the side again. I want to use my grade category. So this is in written communication. Let's see, I'll give that due date. Maybe that's going to be, it's a writing assignment. They have a little bit more time. I'm not going to give the time that it's got to be due. Remember, like somebody said earlier, with Classroom, anything that's assigned to students, it will say that it's late. And again, the topic for this, I'm just going to stick with writing. If you want, excuse me, if you want, you can create new topics. Now, the thing that I want to point out here is 2 things, actually. One is originality reports. This is like, it checks the internet to see if somebody has copied and pasted. You can only do this with 3 assignments per class. So you want to save it for like the really big assignments, right? And I'm going to tap on that to continue. So now I know the originality of a long writing assignment. Have the students plagiarized or not, right? Now, here is the rubric feature, okay? Now, I'm going to tap on that. And if I want, I can create a rubric. Now, I'm not going to do that. Well, actually, maybe I will just to show you how it looks, okay? So I'm going to add the scoring to it, which means it's going to go into my spreadsheet a little bit later. So you would type in your criterion, you would type in your criterion description, and then your point value, and then your levels. So for example, it could be, I don't know, syntax, for example. Syntax is accurate. You would take time, obviously, to do this properly. And so for 1 point, it would be, does not meet the requirement, and then type your description in there. And then you would type to go up to level 2, and then level 3 and level 4 and so on. And then you would have to click save. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but for my first criterion, syntax, then my next criterion, it might be grammar, for example. You get the idea, but I'm gonna close this because I don't want to save it, because I want to show you something really nice. I do recommend that if you use Classroom, create a rubric that's generic enough that you can just go back in and reuse it. So I'm going to close that and I'm going to discard it. And so for my rubric, I'm actually going to click rubric and I'm going to choose look at that. See, slippery fingers, hot Nagoya. So I click rubric and I'm going to choose reuse rubric. Now, if you have one in Google Sheets, you can import that, but you probably won't do that. So I'm going to click that. I'm going to zoom out here. And so I'm going to use the one that I used for this past assignment. So I'll tap on that. I'm going to choose select. And now my rubric's here, but I want to edit it. So I'm just going to tap on it and I can go up and I can choose edit. So that might have been a little bit too fast for you, but up here, the three little dots, choose that, click edit, and then I can go in and change all of my, my criterion. You'll notice here that it now goes 4, 3, 2, 1. If you put a number here, which you must, your points will automatically reshuffle from ascending to descending, depending on how you have it set, right? Everybody has a different view that they like. So I'm not going to go in and change all of these, but if I was to change this to speaking because it's an oral assignment, then all I had to do is change the words that really matter, but don't change the context of the skill set, and I click save. And so now I've got my rubric. I've changed it a little bit. So again, you can reuse rubrics without having to type them over and over and over again, right? Now for this though, it's a writing assignment, so I want my students to use a Google Doc that I've already created, and I just want them to type their work in there. The reason I want to do that is because as they work, I can give them feedback on the document before I even give them a grade, right? So I'm going to click add, and I'm going to click Google Drive. Now I will point out too, remember, you can add other supporting documents like a link or a file or whatever. So for example, if I wanted this link to be a supporting document, I would just add the link, paste it there, and then that's going to populate, right? So you can see that looks like the site that I just used. Now, if I want them to work on a doc, just wait for that to populate, and I'm going to go to the assignment that I created. So I'm going to tap on that, and it goes, and now I've got this option here. Students can view file, students can edit the file, or make a copy for each student. This is the beauty of this. I click make a copy for each student, and every single student is going to get their own copy that nobody else but I can see and the student. And this is where we're going to work from, where I can give them feedback as they develop their piece of writing, right? And again, you'd normally have more instructions and things like that. And you might add like videos to help them out or something like that. So I'm not going to schedule it. I'm not going to save it as a draft, but you can do that. I'm just going to click assign. And the thing too that I should point out is if I have 2 sections of a class, I can tap that and I can add it to another class if I want them to get the exact same assignment. So I don't have to make the same assignments and assign the same quizzes over and over again. I can assign it to 2 different sections of the same course. I'm not going to do that here. Also, let's say I have students that are on a modified program. Then I can assign this just to 3 or 4 students, and then the other 2, I'm going to modify another assignment for them. In this case, I'm going to choose all students to get this, but that's a nice feature. The grade category I didn't put in there, written communication. And so all I had to do is click assign. We'll wait for that. Okay, and so now I'm back here at classwork and I get my thumbnail view, or not my thumbnail, but bird's eye view of things that are due. And if I want to go back to my stream, here I noticed as well that I've got reminders even for me as the teacher, and I click view all, and now I can see what assignments have been assigned and how many have been turned in. Oh, well, that assignment or that quiz that I gave a while ago, they haven't done it. Oh, but here, look, the 47 Ronin quiz, somebody actually did turn it in, but it looks like I haven't graded it because there's 5 students in the class. So I'm going to tap on that. And so the student, now I'm going to tap on this. And if I want, I can kind of go through and remind myself of what the quiz looked like. All right, just to, that's an important feature, as you can see. Okay, what is this assignment that I'm thinking of? Now you notice here that the other students have been graded on the left, right? Now, I've returned these to all the students, but this one here. So it's a quiz, but until I click return, now this has been auto graded for me, which is nice. It's worth, I think this one's worth 10 points. You can see here. So some students have done well, another student not so well. So I'm going to click return. And if I want, I can add a private comment. And then I'm going to click return. And there is no comment in that. So for some reason, there should have been a comment pop up. So I'm going to have a look at that again. And click on that student there. For some reason, that didn't auto-populate, but it should have auto-populated. I'm going to give that a point there. Okay, and you can see that it's been assigned. I'm going to click return. Click return. And there you go. I don't know what just happened there, but normally that would auto-populate. So we're going to go back now. And if I go back into my grades, I get my thumbnail view of all the different classes that are assignments that I've created. And so now I see that there's another thing that I have to grade that a student hasn't submitted, right? So what I want to do is just kind of pop out of this account. Bear with me for a moment. I know this seems like there's a lot going on here, but it is quite intuitive. So let me sign out here. I'm gonna have to close that. And I'm gonna go down to, let me just sign in here as student 5. So now you're getting the student view, right? What does this look like for the student? Come on, load. Okay, and I see we're getting a little bit down to time here, so I'm gonna quickly go into classroom. Or actually, no, we're doing okay. This is about, yeah, 4 o'clock. All right, we're doing okay. So this is the student view. The student's only a member of one class. You notice here, it's got a thumbnail view of what's due, what's coming up. So you notice here that they don't get the grades up here, right? They can see their classwork and they can see their grades if you've set it that way. They can see people in the class and that kind of thing, right? So it's got the teacher, it's got all the other students' names, but they don't see anything beyond that. So I'm gonna click classwork. One other thing I will point out is they can check on Google Calendar if anything's due, right? And this is where they can access their Google Drive folder with all their work. So if they were to tap on that, they're going to see for this class in Google Drive a little folder that takes them directly to this. And these are the 3 assignments that they have to do. They could also access this through going up here and choosing Google Drive as well. So there's different ways to access things. So we're going to classwork, and let's see, demo quiz. Let's not go with that one, actually. Let me go down to one that might be due. So let's see, review your work, passions and dreams, mini essay. It says assigned, assignment 1. See here, it says assigned. Well, that means it's been assigned, but it's not been turned in. If I was to tap on the self-introduction mini essay, notice here it says turned in. So let's go to the one that they haven't done, the one that's due really soon. They get a note that there is a rubric with criteria, so they can tap on that, and they can't change anything, but they can see the point value and what I'm looking for as the teacher and what they have to do as the student. So if they're aiming for top scores, then they're going to be looking at the 4, right? You're not limited to 4, 3, 2, 1. You can make that as many as you want or as little as you want. So here, I'm just going to tap on this, and they're going to get that doc, the one that I shared with every student in the class. Now, for the sake of brevity, what I'm going to do is, now you notice here the instructions, please write below. What I'm going to do, though, I'm going to go to, let me just get that out of the way. I'm going to go and I'm just going to copy something because I want you to see the originality report feature, right? Are students plagiarizing or not? So I'm just going to edit. I'm going to paste it in. Let's assume this is a good student. They didn't plagiarize, but for the sake of showing you that. So they've finished their assignment. It's a paragraph, not an essay, obviously, but this would be longer. And up here in the top right, it says turn in. So when they're finished, they would click turn in. But remember, I as the teacher, if I was in the teacher view, I could go into Google Drive, go into the folder that has their name on it, and then go into the folder for this assignment, and I could just highlight things, add a comment. This, I don't think you can see that. There you go. This structure needs to be reworded, or maybe this is inaccurate historically or something like that. And then the student's going to see it. And then they can reply to you and things like that. This is, of course, the student talking to themselves, but as the teacher, I could do that, right? So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to click Turn In. Wait for that to populate. So now it says, do you really want to turn in your work? Are you sure? So it's the first time student 5 has been in here, so that pops up. So I'm going to tap Turn In, or I could actually just cancel that. And I want to go and run the originality report right there, right? Or if I want to comment to the teacher, hey, teacher, can you check this? And that's going to be a private comment just to me, the teacher. The student might want to run the originality report. They would click Run. And remember, you can only do three of these, right? So looks like things might be okay, but they should get a little bit of a flag. Depends on whether the internet's going to see that. If I want to click here and view the originality report. Now notice here it says one cited or quoted response, right? So, or passage, sorry. So I'm going to tap on that. And then it says sutori.com. So your passage with the top web thing. So it actually didn't take me to my Google map where I took it from, but I do have this passage that I wrote on another app called Sutori. So it's actually flagged that. So the point is that it's not all websites are going to be flagged, so to speak. So it's not 100%, but it's not too bad. So I'm gonna go back here, gonna close that. And if I feel it's okay, I'm gonna click Turn In, or the student might say, oh my goodness, I plagiarized. So now they've turned it in, but they can unsubmit it if they want. The teacher has to give them access back, but it's all submitted. And now the teacher can go in and check their work. So that's what I'm gonna do, actually. I'm gonna close this up. And I'm going to get it a classroom. I'm gonna go back into the teacher account. Bear with me for a moment. I choose to do this from my training account simply because the Google doesn't cross-pollinate sometimes very well. So as a teacher, what does that rubric thing look like, right? Wait for that to load. I'm gonna go back up here. I'm gonna open Google Classroom. Now remember, I'm the teacher here now, so I might as well just close those two tabs. Okay, so I go back into this class, and I'm gonna go back to classwork. And so that was the Passions and Dreams mini essay, I believe. I'm gonna tap on that, and I can see that somebody else now has turned it in. So if I want, I can tap and see which ones have been graded. If I tap any of those three little sections, actually, it's gonna bring me into everyone. I can just say what's been assigned. Okay, one's been turned in, but I haven't graded it yet. Notice the graded ones, it says graded underneath. Well, I go to turned in, I'm gonna open that up. And here on the right side is where I've got my different grades. Now, if you assign something without a rubric, what you're gonna get is just this. It says grade, and you have to give it 70, 80%. Maybe you'll type in here, whatever it is. So here's the student, right, comment. So this is where I can say, like as they're working on this, just highlight, add a comment. I'm just gonna go real quick here. Great. Hit comment. If you want to, though, you could even just go in and use a little red. You may want to I don't usually use red ink, actually, but these are suggestions, and they can be deleted and resolved later by the student. They just click check, or I can delete it, and that kind of thing. All right. But let's say I'm ready to grade. I've read through it, and I think, what did I mean by those things? Okay, just remind myself. Yeah, I'd say that's probably for content, a 3. Let's say for organization, what did that organization look like? Well, okay, that was actually well organized. I'm gonna give them a 4. And for vocabulary, yeah, outstanding. I'm gonna do that. And if I want, I can add a private comment to the student down here, you know, all done. Or see, look, I can spell, but I can't type. So I do that, click post, and now it's got that grade auto-generated in here. Notice here, no flag passages, which is a little bit strange. Tap on it anyway, and it says one cited or quoted passage. So I want to see what that is, right? And it says here, Sutori, and it tells me where that was matched. So me as a teacher, I can see that something is not so original, right? So if that was the case, I would not give them a 91, obviously, right? So if, all right, so now it's a draft, but up here on this little arrow here, I can kind of look at everything else. I can tap on that and see that student. Notice here, I can go to other students before. So I can actually quickly grade all the different assignments without having to go back and open, go back and open, go back and open, and that kind of thing, right? How many students are in the class? Okay, how many have I graded? Just that bird's eye view kind of thing. So now that that Dreams and Passions mini essay here has been graded, let me just check student number 5 again. Yep, I got that grade in. So can't really see here. So now up here where it says not returned, what I can do is return it. I can return multiple submissions, meaning all of these students at the same time, or just this one student. Click return this submission or just return. Well, I know this is a little bit, you know, seems like there's a lot, but it actually is quite intuitive. Come on now, return, will you? So now I'm going to return, and that means the student's going to get their grade and their feedback. Okay, so now I'm going to go out of this, and now this should show that. All right, so just to double check, here it says draft, so I want to go in and click return here. Sometimes, you know, like the not the Wi-Fi, but the app is a little bit slower, so that normally would have been returned to the student, but I'm just going to click return. And so now I know everybody's got their thing. Now, the thing is, I want to get all of this into a spreadsheet. Now, the one thing that's kind of clunky about Google Classroom at the moment is I can't go, you know, to a main gear wheel and download all the different grades at one point. I have to go up to the gear wheel here, and I can copy all the grades to Google Sheets. I can download the grades to CSV. Basically, I want to do all my grades at the same time. But in this case, I can do all of them or just this sheet. So I'm going to copy all grades to Google Sheets, actually. So I'm going to tap on that. And it's going to automatically generate Google Sheets, a Google Sheets spreadsheet. And if you want, you can go in and change the formatting. That's not what this session is all about. But you can see here now, I've got all my students, and I get a bird's eye view or a quick view of all the assignments plus my class average and that kind of thing. So if you want to put your totals in, you would have to continue to format later, which is not actually part of this this class. If you want, you can add a sheet and then import other classes as well if you want. But basically, it does all your grading for you because you've got this already set up. So I'm just going to go back to demo class here. And I'm going to go up to my gear wheel. And again, if I go down here, back to my grading, you notice here that I cannot export all of my grades at the same time. And again, that's that bummer of Classroom, right? So even with classwork here, okay, if I was to click up here, you're going to get the same thing. So just to let you know, you've got to go into one class and then you've got to download all the grades, right? Now, before I kind of finish up with this part of the session, this is where you can create posts in your stream. You can create questions and all that, but these are not graded, okay? These are things that you would do just to get a conversation going in your stream, but that's a whole other session. So we've only got about 9 minutes left, and I know there's a bit of Q&A to follow as well. Feel free to cut me off there, Melody, if you'd like as well. Let me just kind of close the, actually, I'm gonna go to here. again, if you want to stay in touch kind of thing, you can find me there. But I want to go down to two other sections. One is assessment with TED-Ed, and the other is an assessment with Edpuzzle. This is what I kind of would like to show you right now, but if I could just get somebody on the panel, let me know if, do you think there's time for this, or are we gonna go straight into a bit of Q&A? Close that. And let me pop up Zoom here. I know I'm sharing my screen, but. Okay, I'm going to jump into TED. All right. So the reason I like TED is that it's quite well known and quite popular, but a lot of people don't know TED Ed. Okay, you can actually create. This is that third-party app thing now. So we're putting Google aside and looking at some other cool stuff that exists. So within TED Ed, you do have to create an account, and your students will have to create an account as well if you want them to add comments that you can later download and assess on your own. Okay, but if you go to the Discover tab, you can look at lessons that have already been created. But what we want to do is create something. So I'm going to click Sign In right here. Give me a moment to sign into my TED account. Right, see, can't type. Okay, so what I want to do is show basically, all right, first, if you were to create a lesson, all you need is a YouTube. Now this is completely connected to YouTube, right? So let's see if I went back to Kaminarimon. This is from my YouTube channel, Social Studies Samurai. Let me close that because I got it. So all you had to do is actually search for a YouTube video, and then you would tap that video, and then, yep, that's the one I want. Click continue, and you go through and you create a series of multiple choice questions and open-ended questions, right? And I'm not going to go through this for the sake of time, but it is very, very intuitive. All you have to do is hit the plus button, and it'll prompt you to add an introduction, add a question to think about, or it could be a multiple choice question. So if I tap think, multiple choice, or an open answer question, at the end, you would have to publish this. And what I'm going to do, though, is, I'm going to go back. It really is just very, very simple. But what I'm going to do is go back to a lesson, because I want to show you, after you've created your TED Ed lesson using whatever video you want, I'm going to choose this one right here. I'm going to review my student work. So whenever you've had students do a lesson, you get this little thumbnail where you have your Manage tab, and you can edit the lesson itself if you want. You can delete it. You can share it with the world. But if you click on the Review Student Work, okay, now, if you choose multiple choice questions or just open-ended answer questions, you can go and you can see the names of students, kind of scroll down, 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 down. You can see that they've done everything. And then you can download the responses to a CSV file, which basically is an Excel spreadsheet, right? So I'll just tap on that, and then their responses are going to go to, again, a CSV Excel spreadsheet. I would probably change the name. And then I go in and I review their work and add a grade, or maybe just have this, look at my student work. So if we go up to the first student here, review the responses, and okay, this is what they think. And then I can give them feedback here, or if I want, I can give them summative feedback with a grade from another spreadsheet. Again, unfortunately, it's not connected to Google, but you could always create a Google Sheet spreadsheet and then import that into whatever you're using. So, feedback, hey, great. Click give. And you can add responses back and forth. And then you can go and see their next, responses to the other things, and then kind of grade that way. Now, I know that was a little bit rapid fire, but I think TED Ed is something a lot of people don't know, and it's a very, very cool tool that is extremely easy to use. Drawback is it's got to be a YouTube video, any YouTube video, but it gives you, just that other option. Now, yes, you could do that in Google Forms as well, so maybe that's the other option, but TED's kind of cool. Now, one other thing that I am going to show you very quickly is Edpuzzle. We're not going to have time for the how-to, but I encourage you to use this app or try this app, and you'll see why in a minute. So I've created one about this group of indigenous people in I believe the Indian Ocean or the Andaman Sea, and they have not been contacted, but well, they've been contacted by some modern people, but the Indian government's trying to keep people from actually going to their island. But what I want to do is show you how this works. Basically, the student would be watching a video, but it stops and forces them to answer questions or listen to a prompt as you go. And all of this is connected to a spreadsheet within the app if you were to log in. Again, didn't think Google Classroom would take so much time, but that's okay. I just want to introduce what this does because it's way cool. So the student,
what is more dangerous?
Okay, so that cut off really quickly, and that's deliberate because up here, the student now has to listen to what I said to them. As this video begins, you'll see a map of the globe. Think about where this story takes place. Okay, so they continue on with the video.
Were assumed to be direct descendants of the first humans who emerged from Africa.
Okay, so now I've got a question where they, now, by the way, if they were logged in, they would not be allowed to skip ahead like I just did. But, you know, then they have to give, you know, reasons for this question, reason 1, reason 2. And that's something I can go back and I can, okay, they click submit. And then they can continue and I can go back and I can grade this, right? And again, it goes to a spreadsheet so that you can add to any other main spreadsheet that you have. Skip ahead. Okay, and again, here's another note, so to speak. So I click on that. Do you think it was okay for this anthropologist to make contact with this very isolated tribe? Continue. Okay, now you get the idea. So it's a fairly intuitive app. You can have open-ended or multiple choice questions. You can see here as the viewer where you have to answer those questions, but note that there are other things that are other things here, which means there's pauses where they have to listen to me given some kind of narration. I like that you can add closed captioning as well. Very good for you know, people that struggle with listening, right? When they get the multiple choice questions incorrect or correct, this will highlight as green or red, which is indicative to the student that, oh, I got something wrong. Okay, now because we're not logged in, you'll notice here that answers in progress will not be saved. But anyway, maybe in the future for Niigata JALT, we'll have a session on how to use Edpuzzle. But I encourage you to try it and TED-Ed because it is quite intuitive. All right, so I'm going to leave it there because I know there's questions coming up, and that's been about 45 minutes. So if you've hung in through that long, congratulations. All right. And so I'm just going to jump into the Q&A here. Okay, so how can you add a category for grading, i.e. participation, that does not have any assignment connected to it? So what I would recommend for that, okay, so it says my students get 10 points for full participation in class or Zoom. There's no assignment linked. What I would do in that case, and I'm going to answer live here. So what I would do in that case is just create a rubric with participation and then create an assignment participation for, you know, maybe the first month or the first quarter. It depends on how often you're going to grade participation. Or maybe it's just at the end of it. So I'd say create an assignment called participation, make the due date at the end of the semester or the end of the quarter or the end of the year. And then as the assignment, then you give them those full 10 points. I would recommend you create a system of tracking it. That's where Google Forms is a good way to track. You make a Google form that you only as the teacher uses. And then what you could do is, okay, so for this past month, I'm going to go through, not easy if you have 80 students, right? But you can go through, fill out your form. If you do that 3 times throughout the year, then you just take that grade because you've made it a Google Forms quiz. And then you just push that into your spreadsheet. Or, you know, better yet, just, you know, have 3 different assignments in Google Classroom for participation. And then you've got a weighted grade as a separate grade in your scale for participation. I hope that answered the question, but that's what I would do is create a rubric in Google Classroom for participation, then create separate participation assignments, and you just go in and you assess it. So in Google Drive, these classrooms, Kumiko, you said in Google Drive, these classroom files are automatically created in Teachers Drive and Students Drive. Yes. Is there any possibility unintentionally the data in the file be shown to the students? No. Anything that you share with your students, you get that drop-down menu that says make a copy for students, or allow students to view, or allow students to edit. So basically anything you make in your Google Drive folder for that class, nobody can see. Only the students can see things that are in their classroom folder that is auto-generated. And again, once their class folder is made in Google Drive, then each assignment has a separate folder made in it as well. So just to finish here, for example, I create assignments in a form and give it as an assignment. I can see all the responses. Yeah, the students cannot see each other's responses unless you check that box when you're creating the form. There is a checkbox in Google Forms where you can allow people to see each other's responses. I discourage that myself. So when you create your form, just it's automatically unchecked. So I just don't allow them to see it. So no, you're pretty safe. Students will see their response, and you will see all the other responses. So the next one, so for Greg, can you go back over how you did the view all with the to-do list? And after that, okay, so first, so the view all and the to-do list. So in that classwork tab, okay, so that's for the teacher, the third tab from the left. When you click create, that's where you make anything that goes in there. And when you click create, there's a button that says topic, or you can create a topic when you make an assignment, right? So whenever you create an assignment or a quiz, then there's a to-do list, and that shows up in the stream tab to the left. It automatically goes there. So if you create anything, it goes right there. And that to-do list, basically that's just for quizzes and assignments, right? So your second part, is it auto-graded, but you have to hit return? Yes, you do have to hit return. Nothing goes back to the students unless you hit return. Your stuff that you sent and believe it's been auto-checked for the students, can you go back to the people tab and invite them? So that's the thing, when a new student joins the class, right, they should get that other stuff, but you can uncheck them for that. So if you got a student that comes in 5 weeks later, you don't have to give them a grade for it. Don't know if that answered your question, but you should be able to remove them from that assignment. Have I lost any of the ability for the past 5 or 6 weeks to undo the work until I do the invite? Yeah, until somebody joins a class, until you've invited them, they're not going to see this. I think Claire is going to answer the question live. So Claire, maybe I'll leave that to you if you wanted to there.
No, that's actually for you to answer.
It
Sorry.
is, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry. I'm in like a Google world here. My school is completely Google, so we don't use Zoom. So, all right, thanks. So anyway, yeah, you can always invite new people in, but you can take them away out of assignments and that kind of thing, which is a nice feature. Again, sorry, we don't have time to kind of jump in and do that. But go to that first day of Google Classroom, and they have nice short, anywhere from 2 to 5 minute videos to tell you how to do things. Yeah, why did you have to click return 3 times? That is not typical, actually. Usually you click return and it goes, but I've got a couple of different apps opened up here, and so I'm moving a little bit slowly. So no, normally when you click return, it goes to the student. I've got about 4 devices at my apartment right now that they're draining the Wi-Fi. So I think that's probably the reason. When I was playing around with this, over the last week, there was only 1 device open. Well, actually 2, because I was going back and forth. But so no, you don't normally have to click return 3 times. But if you notice where it says draft, that means it has not been returned. And you're going to see that in particular with Google Form quizzes in Classroom. So no, normally it should return after you click return. Let's see, and Carla, how can I change the default language from Japanese to English? That would be in your OS. You should actually, within Classroom itself, you're not going to be able to change the default language. You're going to have to change the default language within your account. So if you do that, then you can change it to the default language, which that makes it a bit of a mission, right? If you're teaching one class in Japanese and the other class in English. That though, let me make a note of that though. I'm kind of curious, and maybe Niigata JALT can put that out to the community. Language, but in Classroom you cannot change the default language though. Only in one class. Yeah, let me check into that though, because Google Classroom, it's been around for about 7 years now, and it keeps updating. There's always new improvements coming. I started using it about 7 years ago, and it was good for the time because it was new. But little by little, in Google tools, you'll notice that it says give feedback. It actually is important to give feedback, because I was doing one for YouTube yesterday, just saying, hey, can you please do this? The more people do that, the more that particular feature that people want gets flagged, and Google is more likely to invest time. So since the pandemic began, Google Meet has been inundated with, well, Zoom has breakout rooms, can you do that? And Zoom allows this and that. So Google has been putting a serious amount of time into breakout rooms, and they've just announced a bunch of updates that are in progress. We don't know when they're coming out, but Google Meet is going to look a little bit more like like Zoom eventually. Where it says give feedback, I encourage that you do that. So let me just I don't think they're, okay, so I think I responded to Greg there. I'm not sure if I answered that question well enough, but that's another thing I'll have a look at and try to type a clearer response for you. But generally, students, when they come in or come out, you can assign them assignments of the past, or you can take them out of assignments. And again, you can assign only specific students an assignment.
Nathan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, yeah.
What I meant with the question, and I will go look at those videos, but just to tell me how much panic I need to be in now the rest of this weekend, I never did invite any of the students yet, but they've been doing 5 or 6 weeks of homework now, which I believe once I realized that I wanted to have it that way, they've been getting auto feedback on correct or incorrect answers of the quizzes already. But when I go look at it, the left channel has the out of 10, but no actual score. So can I go now and invite all of those people from that tab? And will that automatically then check, or am I going to have to go in and hand bomb through all of those assignments, in your opinion?
Yeah, I've never seen that happen before. I've never had that question. So my guess is you're going to have to go back in and put the grades in. But remember, if they've already done it with a Google form that you've created, then just go to the responses, click the button that creates the Google Sheet, and then I would just copy that data into your future spreadsheet that you're going to use for your grades. So you're not going to have to, now, if you want to give them feedback within Classroom, type in, each individual number, you could do that, but I would recommend just invite them into Google Classroom. Don't worry about that, and just keep the responses from the form that you've created before, and just tally that into your grades. So, copy and paste into the spreadsheet that's auto-generated.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Shouldn't take you too much time. I wouldn't worry. That's interesting, though. I've not had that before.
I have a comment. It's not a question. Nathan, you were switching in and out of 2 different Gmail accounts, but you don't have to switch. You can open 2 separate windows and have one window to be one account and the other window to be the other account.
I actually usually do it with tabs, and that works just as well But Google Classroom, even if you have a separate window open, you can't go in and do the student, you can't log in as a student. What happens is it doesn't cross-pollinate well with Classroom.
Okay, I've just viewed them. I haven't tried to do anything in the student account.
Yeah, I'm frequently trying to I frequently do that, and it depends on the app. Some apps don't cross-pollinate very well. which is completely irritating because I've probably got about 7 different Gmail accounts for different things that I do, right?
Me too.
Yeah. Aside from, all the fake student demo accounts that I use as well. So yeah, it depends on the app, but if you want to do grading, now in Google Classroom, you can open a student account and your own account and do work. But when it comes to grading, it's going to push you straight into the account you open first. So,
Okay.
or at least, well, I always open my teacher account first. So actually it pushes me to that, but it will push you into one account or the other. When you're
Okay.
looking at the grading work. Yeah, that's been irritating for the last couple of days, to say the least.
Thank you for clarifying that. I've only just viewed them side by side, and I've never had any trouble with viewing them.
Yeah. Well, again, some of the apps you can work in one and the other. So when I'm usually doing presentations, creating my slide deck, I'll have one account open with that slide deck, and then copying, pasting from that, and it's usually fine. But with Classroom and the grading feature, it just hasn't worked. So.
Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, incognito windows haven't worked for me either. So.
Does anyone else have a question?
Yeah, there's a couple of hands up.
Sorry, let's get Kumiko in here.
Hey, thank you for answering the question earlier, but I have one more question. So
Please.
actually it's kind of related to what you were talking about, because we're using a G Suite at our university, and as a instructor, I kind of want to see what my students are looking at, but we're not is there any possibility we can see the student view without having secondary account, because we cannot create it, all is controlled under university Joho Kiban Center, so I can't do anything about it. Is there any possibility we can try?
Well, in terms of the work that they're you're talking outside of Google Classroom and just how they're using their account in general, or
what they can see. I want to see what they can see, and I think some other maybe some other systems you can see. I think Moodle, there's student view function, but there isn't, right? So
okay, there are 2 companies, but they're third-party companies that partner with Google. One is called Classwork Zoom. So if you go to classworkzoom.com, I believe, and there's another one called Harappa. Harappa as in the ancient civilization Harappa. And basically you can see students working in real time and what they're doing and that kind of thing, even if you don't have a Chromebook. But in terms of seeing what they're doing across their account, there's no way a teacher can do that. And that's again for privacy, right? So as it's set up, your IT administrators, I'm not really sure how much they can see, but the only thing you can see your students doing would be the assignments that you've shared with them and that they have been active on. So you can see what they're doing with a Google Doc that you've made a copy of for them, or if they've answered a Google Form quiz, or if you've put in a Google Slides assignment, or some other app that you've given them permission to edit. You can go in and see what they're doing. But basically everything else, you can't see who they're emailing. You don't know how many blogs they've made with Blogger, or you can't get into all of their Google Slides decks that they've not shared with you. So really, I think what you want to do is with Moodle, it's either Classwork Zoom or Harappa, but that's a paid service. So no, Google does not have that. It would be useful.
Okay, I think Clara told me that I can get the fake student account, but yeah, okay, maybe, but yeah, thank you. All right.
Well, if you want to see the student view of stuff, then yeah, just create a student account.
Yeah, but it takes a lot of steps, and then we have to ask the computer center, and we have to get out the permission. So I just I was wondering if there's any way to track it. So thank you.
Well, to track, yeah, that's one thing. I mean, if you want to see what a student sees, then if anybody wants to see what a student sees, I can create a demo account for you in my training account, and then you can play around with it. Again, that's not going to be a real class, it's
yeah. And I've been creating these demo classes, and then inviting fellow teachers, and then we actually send the screen captures to each other. That's the only thing we can do. So I was wondering if there's any other trick we can do. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, with a number of people, I did a webinar about a month and a half ago on Classroom, and basically I set up student accounts for the 30 odd people that joined, and just kind of went through what they were looking at the student view while watching my screen with the teacher view. But I mean, we could set something up, through Niigata JALT if people were interested in that. But again, it's probably easier just to get your school administrator to create a student account for you that you can jump in and play around with.
This,
okay, thank you.
your school administrator might not want to do that because you have a lot of freedom to abuse the account
Right.
that they can't control. So my school created dummy accounts for everybody, but they shut them down before I figured out how to use Google Classroom. So they did give me one dummy account, but they didn't give it to anybody else.
Okay,
So-
again, we can keep the conversation going with Niigata JALT. I mean, through my Google Trainer account, I can create dummy accounts for people to play with if they
That's
if they
great.
don't want to mess up their school account and then play with something else. I'm happy to do that. Won't be able to actually set up a class and all that kind of stuff, but well, I could set up a class and put a few things in there, and then you can see what it looks like from the student view. But anyway, that's a conversation with Niigata JALT a little bit later, perhaps.
Okay, I think we'd probably better wrap up. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Nathan.
Pleasure.
I
Thank you
think
for having me.
Bill had to leave. Thank you, Linda, for supporting us
Thank
in
you.
our presentation today. Thanks, Phil and Claire, for managing the backstage. And I guess for the people who are here from the PanSig conference, I think at 4:30 there's a closing ceremony. And for everybody else, thank you so much for joining us today. And please come to our next event, whenever that is.
Don't forget that you'll be actually able to find all of this information definitely on the Niigata JALT website, and we will check with PanSig to see if it's going to be on there.
Oh, I do have one more announcement. As Bill mentioned, for the JALT conference in November, there is a call out for papers on emergency remote teaching. So please consider presenting at JALT on your experiences. The call finishes July 10th. It's open now. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you guys for joining. Again, the recording will be on JALT Niigata. Otherwise, please enjoy the rest of your evening. If you're PanSig, please come to the closing ceremony. If you're registered through JALT Niigata only, enjoy your evening.